Ethan Carter, still groggy from sleep, blinked at the glaring lights of his phone as it vibrated insistently on the nightstand. Rubbing his eyes, he glanced at the screen, expecting another late-night call from his colleagues, but instead, he saw an official message from the Earth's Interstellar Relations Bureau. They requested his immediate presence at their headquarters in Washington, D.C. With a mix of curiosity and trepidation, he threw on his clothes and grabbed his linguist's kit, filled with various digital translators and notebooks. The drive to the bureau was a blur, his mind racing with possibilities. As he entered the grand lobby, he was greeted by Director and Mitchell, a stern woman known for her direct approach. "Ethan, thank you for coming at such an odd hour," she said, offering a firm handshake. "What's the situation?" Ethan asked, trying to mask his nerves. "We've had first contact, Ethan. An alien vessel landed 2 hours ago in Nevada. They've asked for a human, specifically someone skilled in languages and empathic communication. You came highly recommended. Aliens? As in extraterrestrials?" Ethan's voice betrayed his astonishment. "Yes, and there's more," and continued as they walked briskly towards the operations center. "Their leader, an Empress, apparently needs to connect with a human to awaken some sort of powers. That's all we know." As they entered the operations center, Ethan was introduced to Dr. Marcus Lee, an expert in xenobiology, and Captain Laura Hayes, the head of security for the Bureau. Screens around the room displayed looping footage of the sleek, silver alien ship, its design unlike anything Ethan had seen before. "This is Dr. Lee and Captain Hayes," and introduced. "They'll be your primary contacts. Marcus, can you fill Ethan in?" Dr. Lee nodded, his eyes bright with excitement. "The aliens are from Vera, a planet we hadn't identified before. They seem peaceful but insistent on this requirement for their Empress. We need to establish trust and understand their needs." "That's where you come in, Ethan. How am I supposed to do that?" Ethan asked, feeling out of his depth. Through communication and empathy, Captain Hayes chimed in. "Your job will be to learn as much as you can about their language and customs quickly. Time is of the essence." Before Ethan could respond, a live feed from the Nevada site came up on the main screen. A tall, humanoid figure, draped in shimmering robes, stood beside the ship. Her presence was commanding, even through the screen. "That's Empress Caroline," Marcus pointed out. "She's the one you'll be working closely with." Ethan studied her, noting the subtle gestures she made, movements that seemed deliberate and full of grace. It was clear she was not just a leader but someone of significant cultural importance to her people. "Tomorrow, you'll fly to Nevada. Tonight, you need to prepare," and said, handing him a tablet loaded with preliminary data about the Varans. "Learn everything you can. Empress Caroline will expect you to be somewhat familiar with her language." As the meeting wrapped up, Ethan found himself alone with his thoughts. He felt a mix of excitement and fear. He was about to engage in a historic dialogue, representing not just himself or the Bureau, but all of humanity. With a deep breath, he began studying the tablet, immersing himself in the Varan language, their soft, flowing words filling his mind as he prepared for the monumental task ahead. Ethan arrived at the Nevada site early the next morning, greeted by the stark beauty of the desert and the surreal sight of the alien ship resting silently on the arid ground. Dr. Lee and Captain Hayes were already there, along with a small team of experts from various fields. As Ethan approached, Dr. Lee waved him over. "Good morning. Did you get a chance to go through the material?" "As much as I could," Ethan replied, adjusting the strap of his bag. "Their language is complex, layers of meaning in every syllable." "That's what we figured," said Captain Hayes, joining them. "Today, your job is to start a dialogue with Empress Caroline. We'll monitor from a distance." Ethan nodded, his nerves tightening. He watched as the ship's door opened, and Empress Caroline emerged, flanked by 2 Varan guards. Her gaze fixed on Ethan as she approached, her eyes reflecting a deep intelligence. "Welcome, Empress Caroline," Ethan began, using the formal Varan greeting he had practiced. "I am Ethan Carter, designated to assist you." Caroline responded in her fluent, melodious language, which Ethan found surprisingly easier to understand in person. "Ethan Carter, your presence is required and appreciated." We seek a bond that will enable the awakening. Ethan took a moment to process her words, then replied, I am here to learn from you and help in any way I can. Caroline smiled slightly. Your openness honors us. Shall we begin? Dr. Lee, observing from a distance, whispered to Captain Hayes, He's doing well, isn't he? Better than expected, Hayes murmured back. Let's hope it holds. Caroline led Ethan away from the ship, towards a setup that resembled a serene garden oasis, seemingly constructed overnight by the Varens. They sat on intricately carved stone benches. As we converse, Caroline explained, our understanding will deepen. Tell me, Ethan, what is your world like? Ethan shared stories of Earth, describing the oceans, mountains, and cities. Caroline listened intently, her face alight with curiosity. And what of your people? What drives them? Many things, Ethan replied. Survival, ambition, love. We are a diverse species. And what drives you, Ethan Carter? He paused, considering. Curiosity, the desire to understand and connect. Ah, she nodded. A noble pursuit. They continued to exchange ideas and stories, with Ethan slowly picking up nuances of the Varen language. He began using Varen phrases, delighting Caroline with his quick learning. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the desert, Dr. Lee and Captain Hayes joined them. How is it going? Dr. Lee asked. Better than I could have hoped, Ethan replied. There's so much to learn. Caroline addressed the others now. Your representative has shown great aptitude. We will proceed to the next phase tomorrow. As they walked back to the temporary base camp, Captain Hayes clapped Ethan on the back. Well done. Tomorrow's another day, but you've made a solid start. That night, under the vast, starry sky, Ethan reviewed his notes and prepared for the days ahead. His initial apprehension had transformed into a deep-seated eagerness to continue this unprecedented exchange. The challenge was immense, but the potential for meaningful connection seemed even greater. As dawn broke over the Nevada desert, Ethan returned to the site where the Varen ship was parked. The morning was crisp, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Today, Empress Caroline had scheduled what she referred to as a cultural exchange to deepen their bond. Captain Hayes and Dr. Lee were already there, conversing with two of Caroline's advisors. Ethan approached, catching the tail end of their conversation. It's crucial we understand their social hierarchy and rituals, Dr. Lee was saying. It might give us better insight into their expectations from this. Awakening, Ethan nodded in agreement as he joined them. I'll try to glean what I can today. Their culture is rich with tradition. Caroline emerged from the ship, greeted them with a nod, and signaled for Ethan to follow her. They walked toward a part of the ship's garden setup that Ethan hadn't visited yet, which had been elaborately decorated with Varen flora. Today, you will participate in a Vera tradition, Caroline explained. It is a sharing of life stories, where we connect our pasts to our present. Ethan listened attentively as Caroline shared tales of her ancestors, the founders of her world. Her voice was calm and melodic, filling the air with a sense of ancient wisdom. Now, Ethan Carter, share a story from your life that defines you, she prompted. Ethan thought for a moment, then began recounting his early days at university, his fascination with languages, and a particularly challenging field trip where he had to use his skills to bridge a critical cultural misunderstanding. Caroline listened, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding. Your life has been a journey towards connection, much like ours. Yes, it seems so, Ethan agreed, surprised at the parallels. As they spoke, Captain Hayes and Dr. Lee observed from a distance, taking notes and occasionally interjecting with questions about Varen customs. Empress, may I ask about the significance of the plants here? Dr. Lee pointed towards a luminous, blue-leafed plant. These are Eleonora plants, Caroline explained. They symbolize knowledge in Vera. Sharing space with them during this exchange is to honor the knowledge shared and gained. Fascinated, Dr. Lee recorded this detail, while Captain Hayes looked on, visibly impressed by the symbolism woven into everyday Varen life. The session continued with more exchanges of stories and cultural insights. Ethan felt a genuine connection forming, not just between him and Caroline, but among all present. As the cultural exchange concluded, Saraline invited Ethan to dine with her. It is customary to conclude such sessions with a shared meal, where we reflect on our learnings. At the meal, served by the ship's attendants, Ethan tried various Varen dishes, each with its own story, which Saraline delighted in explaining. The flavors were new and exotic, sparking lively discussions about Earth's own cuisines. Your world is rich with diversity, Saraline noted. Much like ours, yet so beautifully different. Ethan smiled, appreciative of her interest. There's so much more to share. I look forward to learning about your planet's culinary arts too. As the day drew to a close, Ethan, Dr. Lee, and Captain Hayes gathered to debrief. This was more than I hoped for, Ethan said, his voice full of excitement. We're not just building a bridge between our worlds. We're walking across it together. Dr. Lee nodded in agreement. Let's document everything meticulously. This is groundbreaking work. Captain Hayes, usually reserved, added. Keep up the good work, Ethan. You're not just representing Earth. You're shaping its future relations. Energized by the progress, they all felt a profound sense of responsibility and anticipation for the days ahead. This was no longer just a mission. It was a pivotal moment in human history. The following morning, Ethan was up early, replaying the previous day's events in his mind. He felt a deepening bond with Saraline and an increasing responsibility to succeed in this unique role. Today, they would partake in the formal Varen ritual intended to begin the actual awakening of Saraline's powers, a prospect both daunting and exhilarating. Ethan met Dr. Lee and Captain Hayes at the base camp, where they were already discussing the day's agenda. Today's ritual is crucial, Ethan, Dr. Lee said, handing him a digital recorder. Everything needs to be documented. Captain Hayes looked more serious than usual. Security will be tighter around the ship. The Varens consider this ritual sacred. We must respect their customs and ensure a smooth process. Nodding, Ethan followed them to the designated meeting spot, where Saraline awaited, adorned in ceremonial robes that shimmered under the morning sun. She greeted them with her customary grace. Ethan Carter, today we begin in earnest, she announced. You have been a remarkable learner. Now, we must connect deeper. Ethan felt the weight of her words. I'm ready, Empress. Saraline led them to a secluded part of the ship, transformed overnight into a ceremonial chamber with intricate symbols and artifacts adorning the walls. This chamber is where we Varens connect with our essence, Saraline explained. The symbols you see are ancient codes, each representing a power my ancestors harnessed. Today, with your help, I will attempt to unlock mine. Ethan looked around in awe, absorbing the significance of the surroundings. Dr. Lee, meanwhile, set up the recording equipment, ensuring every detail was captured. Saraline instructed Ethan on his role. The ritual involves recitation of the Varen codes of awakening. I will recite, and you will repeat after me, connecting your essence with mine. They began, Saraline's voice filling the chamber with a powerful, melodic tone. Ethan repeated each line as best as he could, feeling a strange energy coursing through him. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse with light each time he spoke. Captain Hayes watched from the sidelines, communicating quietly with his team to ensure all protocols were maintained. As the recitations continued, Saraline suddenly paused, her eyes closing. The air around her shimmered subtly, and Ethan stopped, looking to Dr. Lee for guidance. Keep going, Ethan. This is expected, Dr. Lee whispered, his eyes fixed on the monitors displaying various readings. Ethan resumed the chant, and as he did, Saraline began to respond. Her body glowed faintly, the symbols on her robe illuminating brightly. The chamber filled with a warm, pulsing light. It's working, Dr. Lee muttered, almost to himself, as he recorded the phenomena. Finally, Saraline opened her eyes, which now flickered with an inner light. It is done, she declared, her voice resonant and full of new strength. I can feel my ancestors' powers stirring within me. Ethan, feeling a mix of relief and wonder, stepped back as Saraline approached him. Thank you, Ethan. Your presence has been crucial. Captain Hayes approached, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. Well done. We'll debrief back at camp. There's a lot to analyze. As they left the chamber, Ethan looked back at the glowing symbols. He felt a profound connection to something much larger than himself, a cosmic dance of history, power, and humanity. Back at the camp, the team gathered to discuss the event. What happened today will change how we view interstellar relations, Dr. Lee said, looking at the recordings. Ethan, you didn't just participate. You were part of a historical awakening. Ethan nodded, feeling humbled. It's an honor to be here, to be part of this. I believe we're on the path to something truly groundbreaking. With a day marked by ancient rituals and cosmic energies, the team felt they were not just witnessing history, but were actively helping to write it. The day after the ritual, the mood at the Nevada site was reflective and anticipatory. The successful initiation of Empress Saralyn's powers had opened a new chapter in human-Varen relations, and Ethan was at the center of it all. He met with Dr. Lee and Captain Hayes early in the morning to discuss the next steps. Ethan, your connection with the Empress has been instrumental, Dr. Lee started as they walked towards a designated meeting area outside the Varen ship. Today, we expect you'll delve deeper into the effects of the awakening. Captain Hayes added, security remains tight, but remember, today's focus is on understanding how these new powers affect Saralyn and her governance. It's uncharted territory for all of us. As they approached the ship, Saralyn greeted them with a serene smile. Good morning, Ethan, Dr. Lee, Captain Hayes. Today, I feel the legacy of my ancestors within me, vibrant and alive. I believe there is much to discuss and explore. Ethan nodded, aware of the gravity of her words. I'm eager to learn about these changes, Empress. How do you feel physically and mentally? Saralyn gestured for them to follow her into the ship, where a quiet room had been prepared for private conversations. Since the ritual, I have sensed a heightened clarity and a flood of visions concerning the future of Vera. But these are fragmented and need interpretation. As they sat, Dr. Lee set up a device to record the conversation, ensuring every detail was documented for analysis. These visions, could you describe them? They are more like sensations, connected to potential paths for my people, Saralyn explained. With each decision I contemplate, I feel the weight of its outcomes more acutely. Ethan listened intently, then asked, is there a way you typically interpret these visions in Varen culture? Perhaps something similar can help us understand. Saralyn's eyes lit up with appreciation for the question. Yes, we have seers who interpret such visions. Perhaps, Ethan, you could learn to help me interpret these new insights with your unique perspective. I would be honored, Ethan replied, feeling the depth of his role expanding. Captain Hayes, observing the exchange, interjected, it's crucial we consider the broader implications of these powers. How might they affect Varen society? Saralyn nodded thoughtfully. Indeed, the potential for change is significant. I must consider how to introduce these powers to my people gently. The conversation deepened, with Ethan asking about specific aspects of Varen governance and societal norms. Saralyn shared openly, her trust in Ethan evident as she detailed the complexities of her duties. As the discussion wound down, Ethan felt a profound sense of connection. Empress, your willingness to share so openly. It's more than I could have hoped for. It's a bridge between our worlds. Saralyn smiled softly. Ethan, it is you who have bridged this gap with your empathy and respect. Let us continue to learn from each other. As they left the room, Dr. Lee whispered to Ethan, your rapport with her is remarkable. It's making a real difference. Back outside, Captain Hayes looked towards the horizon. Let's keep the momentum going. The better we understand, the better we can support the Empress and ensure this alliance benefits everyone. Ethan nodded, aware that the days ahead would be filled with challenges, but also with incredible opportunities. As they parted ways, he felt a renewed commitment to his role and to the unfolding story of two interstellar cultures finding common ground. In the days following the intimate discussions, the effects of Saralyn's awakening became increasingly evident. Ethan spent his mornings preparing, and by midday, he was deep in discussion with Saralyn and the human team, interpreting her visions and understanding the implications of her newfound powers. On a bright, clear morning, Ethan met with Dr. Lee and Captain Hayes in a temporary structure set up near the Varen ship. They were joined by a new member, Dr. Aaron Ford, a psychologist specializing in extraterrestrial relations. As her powers grow, so does her perception of possible futures, Dr. Lee was explaining to Dr. Ford. It's crucial we understand the psychological impact on Empress Caroline. Ethan nodded in agreement. Each vision she shares seems more intense than the last. It's as if she's experiencing multiple futures simultaneously. Dr. Ford adjusted his glasses, considering this. It's imperative we monitor her mental state closely. The human mind isn't equipped for such experiences. We must assume the same might be true for Varens. Captain Hayes, looking over a security report, chimed in. We also need to be mindful of how this affects our relationship with the Varen people. Any shift in her behavior could impact diplomatic ties. Agreeing on the approach, they walked together toward the ship where Caroline awaited, looking contemplative as she gazed at the horizon. Ethan, friends, your concern is appreciated, she greeted them. Today, I wish to share something more profound. They settled in a semicircle, ready to engage with whatever Caroline was prepared to disclose. Caroline, whenever you're ready, Ethan encouraged, noting the subtle tension in her posture. She took a deep breath before speaking. The visions are growing stronger, and with them, a sense of urgency. I foresee a potential division among my people depending on the path I choose. Dr. Ford leaned forward, intrigued. Can you describe these divisions? Caroline paused, searching for the right words. One path could lead to unprecedented prosperity but requires embracing significant changes in how we govern. The other is more conservative, keeping to our traditions but potentially stalling our progress. Ethan exchanged a glance with Dr. Lee, sensing the gravity of her dilemma. How do you feel about these options? It's a heavy burden, Caroline admitted. Both choices have their merits, but it's the reactions of my people I'm uncertain about. Captain Hayes asked, is there a way to prepare your people for either scenario? Perhaps easing them into new ideas? Caroline nodded thoughtfully. Yes, that could be wise. Gradual introduction to new concepts might lessen resistance. Dr. Ford suggested, let's explore ways to communicate these visions to your people that reflect empathy and understanding. It could help bridge the gap between change and tradition. The discussion turned to strategies for communication, with Ethan and Dr. Lee offering insights from human history where rapid changes had either led to conflict or cooperation, depending on the approach. As a start, sharing the nature of these visions in a public address might help, Ethan proposed. It could prepare them mentally and emotionally for what's to come. Caroline considered this, her expression lightening. I trust your judgment, Ethan. Let's plan this address together. As the meeting concluded, the group felt a cautious optimism. They had begun to chart a course through uncharted waters, guided by mutual respect and the shared goal of a peaceful future. Walking back to the base, Ethan felt a deep sense of purpose. This collaboration was more than diplomatic. It was a fusion of destinies, human and Varen, intertwined in their quest for understanding and harmony. As the day of the public address approached, Ethan and Caroline spent hours together planning every detail. Dr. Lee and Dr. Ford were integral in advising on the psychological and cultural aspects, while Captain Hayes ensured that all security measures were in place. In a well-equipped room inside the Varen ship, Ethan, Caroline, and the team gathered for a final preparatory meeting. Ethan, the speech draft looks solid, Dr. Lee commented, scrolling through a digital tablet. It addresses the potential changes with a gentle but firm approach. Caroline nodded, looking over the document. It's important that my people feel involved in this journey, not just subjected to it, Dr. Ford added. The inclusion of traditional Varen stories is a brilliant touch. It links the new with the old, softening the introduction of these startling visions. Captain Hayes, reviewing the security setup, looked up. We're prepared on our end. The event will be broadcasted without a hitch. Caroline turned to Ethan. I must confess, despite our preparations, I am nervous. The reaction of my people is still an unknown. Ethan offered a reassuring smile. It's natural to feel this way, but remember, your openness and honesty have always resonated with them before. The group moved to the assembly area where the address would be held. The area was filled with symbols of Varen heritage, creating a comforting environment for Caroline and her audience. As they made their final checks, Dr. Lee whispered to Ethan. This could change everything for Vera. You've done remarkable work. Thanks, Marcus, Ethan replied. Couldn't have reached this point without the team. The time came, and Saraline stepped up to the podium. Her figure broadcasted to every screen in Vera. Ethan stood just off to the side, watching her take a deep breath before beginning. People of Vera, Saraline started, her voice steady and clear. Today I share with you a vision of our future. Not just any vision, but one awakened by our new friends from Earth. She continued to detail her experiences since the awakening, explaining her visions with careful transparency and linking them to possible futures for Vera. Ethan watched the crowd, seeing a mix of awe and uncertainty. Saraline spoke of change and growth, of the challenges and rewards each path could offer. She invited her people to think, to question, and to dream of what Vera could become. When the address concluded, there was a moment of silence, then a burst of applause. It seemed the message was well received, but the true impact would unfold in the days to come. Backstage, Saraline exhaled deeply, turning to Ethan and the team. Thank you, all of you. No matter what comes next, today we turned a page together. Captain Hayes was the first to respond. Empress, it was an honor to secure this moment. The courage you showed today will be remembered. Dr. Ford smiled. It's a privilege to witness and support this pivotal point in Veran history. As the team gathered around Saraline, offering their congratulations and support, Ethan felt a profound bond had been sealed among them. They had not just worked towards a political goal but had fostered a deep, mutual understanding and respect. Later, as the sun set over the Nevada desert, Ethan and Saraline took a moment to reflect. Today was a culmination of more than just a project, Ethan said, looking at the fading light. It feels like the beginning of something much larger. Yes, Saraline agreed, her eyes reflecting the sky's myriad colors. A journey we embarked on together, which now continues with my people. As they watched the night take over, there was a sense of accomplishment and anticipation. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape, together. The chapter closed on a day of significant achievements, but the story of human and Veran cooperation was just beginning. The aftermath of Saraline's public address was felt immediately. Across Vera, discussions sprang up, fueled by the possibilities and visions she had shared. Back at the Nevada site, Ethan, Captain Hayes, Dr. Lee, and Dr. Ford convened to assess the initial reactions and plan the next steps. In the quiet of the early morning, the team met in the main conference room near the ship. Ethan brought in the latest reports from Vera, provided by Saraline's communication team. Initial feedback is surprisingly positive, Ethan began, handing out the data sheets. There's a lot of curiosity and, importantly, hope among the Veran populace. Dr. Lee peered over his glasses at the reports. This is good news. It seems the Empress's heartfelt approach resonated well. We need to keep this momentum. Captain Hayes, ever the strategist, pointed out, we should consider how ongoing support from Earth can help stabilize any uncertainties that arise. Our involvement shouldn't end here. Dr. Ford nodded in agreement. Absolutely. Continuous psychological support and cultural exchange could be vital. We need to ensure the Verans feel empowered, not overwhelmed. Ethan considered their points. Saraline mentioned wanting to set up a more structured exchange program, cultural, technological, educational. It might be time to start laying the groundwork. The discussion shifted towards long-term strategies, ensuring that the newfound partnership between Earth and Vera grew sustainably. Captain Hayes suggested setting up a series of workshops and seminars. Let's bring in experts from various fields, governance, science, art, and more. It could help broaden the understanding and appreciation of each other's worlds, Hayes proposed. Dr. Lee was quick to support the idea. And let's not forget about the younger generations. Initiating student exchange programs could plant the seeds for a deeply rooted alliance. As they mapped out potential programs, Saraline joined them, her presence bringing a calm assurance. Your ideas are a beacon for our future cooperation, she said, smiling at each team member. I am committed to fostering this partnership. Ethan, feeling inspired by her words, replied, We're equally committed, Empress. This is just the beginning of what we can achieve together. The meeting concluded with a sense of accomplishment and a clear path forward. They agreed to meet regularly, involving both human and Varen leaders in the planning process. Later that day, as Ethan and Saraline walked through the makeshift garden set up around the Varen ship, they discussed personal reflections on the recent events. Saraline, how do you feel now, seeing your people's reaction? Ethan asked, genuinely curious about her emotional landscape. It's a mixture of relief and responsibility, she answered thoughtfully. I feel as though we are on the cusp of something great. It's exhilarating and daunting. Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Change always is, but it's the courage to embrace it that defines us. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the desert, they paused, looking at the horizon. It was a new dawn for Vera and Earth, a horizon broadened by shared visions and mutual dreams. Thank you, Ethan, Saraline said softly, for being at my side through this journey. Ethan smiled, his heart full. The honor is mine, Empress. Here's to a future, bright with promise and possibility. Together, they watched the stars emerge, the sky a tapestry of light, mirroring the potential of their united paths. The chapter closed on a day marked by understanding and camaraderie, but the story of their intertwined destinies was just beginning to unfold.